too much away at the beginning. That's kind of an art that's sort of lost today, Matt. But you know, I think guys that are breaking into the business, you know, should really look at things like that and think, you know, the pacing of the match, and you know, if you give too much straight away, you know, it's like the next moves don't, you know, it's kind of pointless as a fan seeing the next kind of moves because you've or just hit the guy in the face. So, you know, that should be doing the most damage. Overall, Matt, for you on that match, did you enjoy that? Was that something you were fond of?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was pretty good. Of course, like I've seen Dynamite Kid he's like kick it up to another gear, but you know, like I couldn't see any problems with this match. I thought it was pretty good.
Yep, okay, well, we're going to move on to our next match now, folks. So, yes, next match, we are going to have Larry Sabisco versus Bruno Sammartino. Quite a mouthful in both those names, really, Matt. And we're going back to, well, the time of 1980, Madison Square Garden. And I'm sure many of our listeners would probably have heard of both these gentlemen at some time or another. I mean, Larry Sabisco, Matt, he had even a little stint in TNA, didn't he? We heard a lot about him. People probably maybe only familiar with him in that, but Larry Sabisco was a very famous wrestler from back in the day. And of course, Bruno Sammartino, who was inducted, a couple of years ago now, I believe, in the WWE Hall of Fame, you know, finally was inducted through by the way of Triple H, by all accounts, finally.
And you would have been one of the first, wouldn't you, with that kind of record?
Considering the length of time he'd held onto that title was quite incredible, really. So yeah, we're here. We're talking about this one today. So yeah, I think we should get straight into it. So again, now this match. Before we go on, I should say where we're getting this from. I will put this link in the in the video as well. But if I can, I will have a look before this goes out. And I'm kind of sure you may get this on the WWE Network. So if you want a really good quality video, basically type Bruno Sammartino versus Larry Sabisco on the WWE Network. If it's not on there, then I will put the YouTube link. Unfortunately, it's not great because you have a running like little thing in the middle of the entire match of like this created blah 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 on it. But because I can see a WWE logo on the right top hand side, I'm guessing that WWE have this content somewhere. So I'd be very surprised if it's not on the network. But try and search up Bruno Sammartino versus Larry Sabisco, and you're looking at 1980 on this one. So we're going to go back on this one in 3, 2, 1, and we're here. So yeah, the footage basically we're just starting with a very unique view of the ring. It almost looks like I'm a fan trying to see what's going on. That's what it feels like at the moment. It's like I'm actually sitting there, but I'm sure there's some commentary going over the top with all this. And so yeah, Madison Square Garden, and I can already see, even with my eyes, that Howard Finkel is in the ring. The man of ceremonies right there.
He's always looked old, isn't he, then? If that's the case.
It's that hairstyle, I think. My goodness.
The comb over.
Yeah. And talking about comb, I mean, you know, you see him in the ring already. There's Larry Sabisco. Matt, how familiar are you with Larry Sabisco in general?
I've got to say, I'm not incredibly familiar with him, but my strongest memories of the guy are from his stint in WCW, you know, when he used to, was he one of the announcing team, wasn't he?
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I think he was. Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
That's kind of like what I remember him from.
Mm-hmm. And coming out now, the man himself, who held that title for such a long time, Bruno Sammartino, right there coming out in the ring. Such a massive draw was Bruno Sammartino. And that, you look at that crowd response, you knew how over this guy was in New York. This guy was the guy of New York. Like, I think he still holds the record of, like, you know, he's the most watched athlete, not just wrestler, in Madison Square Garden, Bruno Sammartino, which, that's a hell of a record still to have that to today. That's a hell of a feat for sure. And he wrestled for such a long time as well. I mean, this is right at the back end of Bruno Sammartino, so it's worth pointing out that for sure. And these two guys up until this point had quite the running between each other. Like they'd wrestled, they had they had a couple of matches before all this, so this wasn't their first dance together as such. But the interesting thing here about all this is that the reason this was brought up to my attention was by our friend Sheldon Goldberg, who's been on the podcast a few times. He's the promoter of New England wrestling in America, and he also is before he done all that in the last 10 years, he's a massive was a massive news reporter on wrestling, and he's got such a great mind in wrestling and knows all the sort of best past matches. And I said to Sheldon, like, give us some ideas that we can cover, and we'll definitely put it on the Wrestling Arts series. So this is one of them. As we're gonna, I think we're almost getting into this. That referee's trousers, Matt, they look so high. It's like, whoa. He's definitely making sure they're there. So here we go. We're into the match. I'm not too sure what to expect because I'm going to be honest. I've never seen this match at all. I'm going in this so cold that we could get anything here. But on paper, two big names, Matt, for sure. And of course, Madison Square Garden, definitely the most if not the most famous arena. At the time and going around. It's so funny that the only thing you always know it's Madison Square Garden more than anything is that exit sign. That's what's in the background. You can envision Mick Foley coming out in 2000 when he done the street fight with Triple H. It's just always the same. That's never left. They don't even try and cover that up. It's just the exit is always there. And that's how you know it's Madison Square Garden. See Larry Sabisco getting the better.
I'd never noticed that before you said that, but now I've always been noticing that. Now you said it.
Yeah. God, talk about charging in. The other fascinating thing as well when you look at some of these older matches is the photographers on the outside. Like, again, I can't emphasise how important all that was, because this is a time where you didn't have, like, if you're in New York, you're only going to see this if you were kind of there, and like no real like huge channel took this over. That's amazing strength, by the way, that's going on there from Bruno Sammartino. But nobody knew what was going on half the time in other territories. So the only way you got to know back then was through the magazines, whether it was Pro Wrestling Illustrated, those kind of things that were all there. That was the only way you knew other people's territory results. So that when you see these camera crews, they weren't like WWF camera people. They were like people from the magazine company. I mean, if you've seen Paul Heyman's DVD, you'll notice that he done a little bit of that in his time as well. Bill Apter, of course, who's a very famous writer for PWI as well, was into that, and that's where all the rankings come from. Matt, Bruno Sammartino, is he? I mean, you probably definitely heard of him now if you didn't on that Hall of Fame, but his record and everything else is pretty much standing the test of time, isn't it? Any kind of? Do you think that'll ever be conquered?
I was going to say, I would imagine that would be impossible to conquer.
Yeah.
These days, the audiences they get so complacent, don't they? And the best way now, the company always seems to go to shake things up, is to crown new champions.
Sure.
And it was a particularly huge deal, wasn't it, when CM Punk had his whole reign?
Mm-hmm.
But they had to say the longest reigning champ of the modern era, don't they, nowadays?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because the rules that they kind of set back in these days, like even with Fabulous Moolah, they're just so incredible, and you can't ever break them because, like I say, everything wasn't always on TV, and going to these live events and that, you could just stick with the same guy because they were huge draws. It's just like you can't make stars like that anymore.
Yeah, no, it will be, I think, almost impossible to replicate this. It's almost like the Undertaker's streak, but even this compared to that in some respects is such a it's such a long way away, isn't it, from that, really?
It would have been like equivalent of like having John Cena as the heavyweight champion all the way through his career, like from the moment that he first won his title to now. If the company was doing bad, they would just straight away blame John Cena, wouldn't they?
Yeah.
They'd be like, nah, he's the champion.
So this match so far, very back and forth. Neither guy really taken over that much. It's worth pointing out that in 1977, so 3 years before this, San Martino would have lost his title to superstar Billy Graham by then. So he was, like I said, this was at the back end of Bruno San Martino's career. He was probably aching a lot at this point, I would imagine, for his career. He'd had a long old stint, for sure, in wrestling. But also with this, it won't be. I think we're going to cover another match between these two as well in the series. So get familiar with these guys, because there's a couple of other times where they meet. It has lots of implications on the business. Now, Matt, I mean, is this something that you would kind of seek out if we wasn't doing this just by chance?
It's not kind of the thing that would automatically come up in YouTube wouldn't suggest it for me. Let's just say that.
Sure.
It would be more kind of modern stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would seek it out because I don't know. I don't know that much about these guys, or especially Zbyszko. I mean, I know San Martino, and I know he had his incredible record and all of that. But that's why I'm glad that we do these shows, because like with the Buddy Rogers match, I was glad that I saw that, because it would be something that I would not have seen under any other circumstance.
Yeah, just to give a bit of background to this is, in a lot of ways, this feud between these two guys was seen as teacher versus the student, because basically, if there was a storyline in all this, and that was Bruno San Martino was the teacher. He was the guy that brought him in, trained him as such, and Larry Zbyszko was the student at the time. So it's what kind of made their rivalry stand out back in that time, because it was probably one of the first times that they ever used that sort of story angle. So this was one of the. It had a lot of emotional attachments to it in a time where that sort of thing wasn't really as exposed as that storylines are today, where everything has a story on it. But here was a time where that happened very rarely. So when they brought this out, this was like a new thing to a fan going to a wrestling show. All of a sudden, you're seeing guys actually have a spin on it where there's actually true storyline to life. So it definitely had a lot more of an emotional feel to this matchup, as we see a giant bear hug going on. You see, when I look at Bruno San Martino doing this bear hug, I'm actually thinking that looks like it's causing pain. When I see a bear hug today, they look totally different to that. I'm not sure if it's a selling problem or if it's just the way he's clamping that on, but it looks like he's actually digging it in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and he's a big guy, isn't he? He's a huge man, you know. And something else that strikes me from this time zone, maybe going a little bit off topic, but body hair did not seem like an issue back then.
No, you're right. I think he's quite well renowned for that as well. All the way from the places he came. Of course, he was very. Arnold. I think it was Arnold Schwarzenegger, wasn't it, that inducted him into the Hall of Fame. because
Yeah.
Arnold had kind of followed that message of him sort of coming to America and kind of living the American dream as such, sort of followed those footsteps. That's how